What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. This is going to be the third installment on Alan's truck, swapping it from a 4.3 V6 and a 4L60 to a 6.0 LQ4 and a 4L80. And man, we're going to start this video out with the fact that I screwed up, guys. I made a mistake. So we're going to do a little bit of unwork and then get back to forward work. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so in the last video, I mentioned that since the truck, this 2005 Silverado, originally came with drive-by cable throttle. The 4.3 V6 uses a drive-by cable throttle. That I was going to convert this 2005 LQ4 over to drive-by cable by switching the wire harness, switching the throttle body. I wound up just switching the whole intake manifold and going about it that route. Well, I should have done more research and checked all the steps of the process before I did that. What I found out here is, and maybe this is just my lack of knowledge, but I am unable to reprogram that 4.3 computer, which it's a P59 computer. They use the same P59 to run 5.3s, 6.0s, even 4.8s. But for whatever reason, I'm not able to switch the operating system, or switch the engine segment to a V8 engine segment. So it will not run a V8 engine. I don't know if there's actual internal differences in the PCM that don't allow it to run a V8, or what the reasoning behind that is. But I could not find a way using HP tuners to swap out the 4.3 segment and swap in a 6.0 or a 5.3 segment. So I had to scrap using that computer. And if you'll recall, part of the reason I wanted to use that computer is because this thing still needs to pass emissions. Here in Maryland, we have a plug-in emissions test. And when they plug their computer into the truck, it needs to read the same VIN number that is displayed on the windshield, or under the windshield, I should say, and in their paperwork in the system, the same VIN number for the registration. So I had to do more digging and figuring out, and long story short, the way that I found that I can make all of this work is I can use a P59 from a 2005 truck that came with a V8, and I happen to have one here out of a 2005 GMC Yukon. Now in HP tuners, I'm able to swap the VIN. So I moved the VIN number from the truck into the computer. So now when you plug in, you read that computer, it says, this is my VIN number, blah, 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 blah. The same 17-digit code that is this truck's VIN number, like it should be. So that puts us in the clear on that portion of the emissions inspection. When they plug in, the correct VIN number is going to come up. Now, what that means we have to figure out is that computer, that P59, will not run a drive-by cable operating system. It's more advanced than the P01 and the 411 PCMs. And there are rare P59s that are able to do both. But the one that I have is not. So we're going to pull the engine harness back off. We're going to go with what was my actual original plan in this thing and convert the throttle pedal over to drive-by-wire. So I have the throttle pedal assembly. I have everything else here. I have the wire harness. the PCM, as I mentioned. The wire harness I have is off of a 2005 2500 HD drive-by-wire engine with a 4L80E and a 6-liter. So it's the exact wire harness that this drivetrain setup requires. And yeah, we're pulling this harness out again. We'll get that correct harness put in. We'll get the computer installed. We'll get the drive-by cable throttle bracket removed, a new drive-by wire throttle installed, the TAC module installed. We'll get the existing cable throttle and cable cruise control module removed, so they're out of the way. And then hopefully, and theoretically, I should be able to start this thing up and drive it. That's the only thing holding me up now, was I had to figure out this electronic portion of it. Got that sorted out. Let's get to work. I'm gonna be super greasy and dirty and a little frustrated again, but this should be it. I think I've got everything figured out now. That once we get this harness swapped, I'll show you what I did in the computer, as I mentioned, to make that all line up and work the way it should. And then we should be able to start this thing up. Time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. It's a few hours later. It's actually about 11 o'clock at night. And I've got this thing more or less back to the point it was at when I started this evening, except now with the correct harness that I need. The drive-by-wire harness, drive-by-wire intake. Everything's hooked up. And like I said, more or less ready to go. So, before I get too much further, because this is experimental and there's no like 100% solid, this is definitely the way to do it information that I've been able to find on the internet. Tomorrow, there's one plug. It's a black 16-pin connector under the fuse panel here. The engine harness has the female side, truck harness has the male side, and some of the pins don't line up. So I'm gonna look and see if maybe I just need to repin that connector to match the truck side of the harness, or if maybe they just aren't used. So I'm gonna have to try to see what I can find for that this evening or tomorrow, so I can get that connector done. And then I'm gonna plug the TAC module in with the throttle pedal, get the reflashed computer put on there, plugged in, and I want to try a test fire. It's a lot of work to convert this thing from a drive-by wire, or correction, to convert it from a drive-by cable throttle pedal. The whole bracketry underneath of there is different for a drive-by cable throttle versus a drive-by wire throttle. So before I go through all the work of pulling the steering column, pulling everything else under there apart, so I can switch it over to the drive-by wire throttle pedal, I want to start it, test it, and make sure it works. Once I've done that, then I'll get inside of there, get everything, all the drive-by cable, brackets, pedal, all that stuff taken out, get the drive-by wire brackets and pedal put in, and then finish putting the front end back together, and it'll be swapped. It'll be done. So, oh, and I've got to do a little bit of modification to the Y pipe Alan got. It's an eBay Y pipe, so, you know, A lot of times eBay stuff doesn't fit perfect. I've experienced that myself. But I think I think I can make it work in this application, I think. So that's going to be tomorrow's objective. That's it for tonight. I'm tired. So I'm calling it a night. I'm shutting down. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, everybody. Well, it's the next night. And I had about an hour or so this afternoon. I came out and I got things connected up. So I've got the tack module and the throttle pedal hooked up. I got the Y pipe connected. The upstream oxygen sensors hooked up. I've got coolant in it. I've got oil in it. I've got transmission fluid in it. I have a spare yoke in the output of the transmission just to keep it from just vomiting fluid out through the tail shaft opening there. And I think I'm ready to do a test fire on this thing. Now, all I have left that I can think of is connect the negative and positive battery cables, get all my tools off of it, and then I should be able to get at least a test fire out of it. Like, it should start. I've got the PCM all programmed, at least to be able to run. I didn't go through yet and remove all the trouble codes that we're not going to be using or needing, but VATS is removed. It's got the right engine program in it. It's got the right transmission program in it. So, like I said, I should be able to start it and let it idle. And the throttle should respond. So I might just blip the throttle a couple times just to make sure the throttle is working. The only question mark I have is that black 16 pin connector in the fuse panel. Under the fuse panel, I didn't get around to looking that up last night, so the only hiccup I could think of that I might have is if some of those pins need to be moved. But for the time being, I think I'm ready. So I'm going to hook up these battery cables and make sure I don't have any sparks or fires or anything like that. And then I'm going to hit the key and see if this thing will start. All right, battery's hooked up. I dumped a little power steering fluid in it, so I'm not running the power steering pump dry. I think we're ready. I think this thing, it should start now. So nothing happened when I put the key in. That's probably not a good sign. Radio and dash came on. I heard the pump prime. I'm going to turn it just a couple more times since the fuel system's empty. Alright, sounds like the fuel lines are full. Oh, cross your fingers. I gotta tell you, that is a relief. Holy smokes. The oil pressure came up right away. Gas gauge is working. Nice and quiet. Oh man, what a relief. Don't see any leaks anywhere. Woo! Yes! Let's see if the throttle responds. Sure does! And it sounds like I got a bad idler. Hey! And that's excellent. Everything looks good in the cluster. Oh man, yes! That's fantastic. Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh, guys, I can't tell you how pumped that makes me. That's so great. So now all I need to do, get everything dressed up, all the little plastic covers put back where they need to be, hook up the scan tool and HP tuners, and make sure the communication with the PCM is working the way it should. And then get all the throttle bracketry and stuff inside the cab switched over. And this thing is done. Man, I can't wait to drive it. Gotta do a test drive. Woohoo! Awesome!